The Architecture of Silence. The secret wasn't buried in the backyard of the Blackwood estate. It was built into the very insulation of the walls. In the affluent suburbs of Connecticut, silence isn't just golden, it's structural. Chapter 1. The Glass House. The rain in Greenwich didn't fall. It descended like a heavy gray curtain, blurring the sharp edges of the Blackwood mansion. Inside, the air smelled of expensive cedar and the sterile scent of clinical cleanliness. Julian stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, his reflection ghostly against the backdrop of the storm. At 24, he carried the lean, restless energy of someone who had spent too much time in rooms that were too large for him. He was the spare heir, the son of a tech mogul who had died 2 years prior, leaving Julian with a massive inheritance and a stepmother who was barely 6 years older than him. Evelyn entered the room without a sound. She was 30, a woman of sharp angles and even sharper intellect. She had married Arthur's father during the height of his cognitive decline, a move the tabloids called predatory, but the legal system called ironclad. "You're staring at the perimeter again," Evelyn said, her voice a smooth contralto that sliced through the hum of the central heating. "The perimeter is the only thing that stays where it's supposed to be," Julian replied, not turning around. "Your father left this house to both of us, Julian, not so you could haunt it like a Victorian ghost. There are discrepancies in the estate's offshore holdings. We need to talk." The secret between them wasn't romantic. It was far more dangerous. It was a financial and historical conspiracy that stretched back to the Cold War. Julian's father hadn't just built software, he had built back doors for the surveillance state, and the Gopon Deyal, or hidden wall, wasn't a metaphor. It was a physical room located behind the library, shielded with lead and electromagnetic dampeners. As Julian and Evelyn began to sift through Arthur's private servers, the American dream began to look more like a digital nightmare. Key information for the U.S. context. The trust. In the U.S., irrevocable trusts are often used to hide assets. Julian discovers Evelyn isn't just a widow, she's a former analyst for the SEC who was planted to investigate his father. The surveillance. Every room in the mansion was recorded. Julian realizes that his bond with his stepmother has been monitored by a third party, a private security firm hired by his father to ensure neither of them ever left the glass house. Chapter 3. The Secret Room. By the second week of their uneasy alliance, the tension reached a breaking point. They found the trigger, a specific sequence of keys on an old Steinway in the parlor. When played, a bookshelf in the study slid back with a pneumatic hiss. Inside was not gold or cash, but a series of servers humming with a low blue light. "He wasn't just tracking us," Evelyn whispered, her face pale in the LED glow. "He was simulating us." They found files dating back 10 years, projections of Julian's psychological development, Evelyn's career trajectory, and a calculated plan to force them into this exact partnership after his death. The hidden wall contained the truth, their entire relationship, their grievances, and even their current discovery had been predicted by an algorithmic model Arthur Blackwood had perfected before he died. Chapter 4. The Breaking Point. The story shifts from a mystery to a survival thriller. In the U.S., privacy is the ultimate currency. Finding out that their private lives were actually a controlled experiment conducted by a dead man turned their world upside down. Julian looked at Evelyn. "If the algorithm predicted we'd find this, what does it say we do next?" Evelyn looked at the screen, her timbers trembling. It says only one of us leaves this house with the encryption keys. The other becomes the scapegoat for the offshore fraud. Chapter 5. The Static in the Blood. The air inside the hidden vault was cold, colder than the rest of the house by exactly 15 degrees. It wasn't just for the servers, it was for the preservation of the physical archives Julian's father, Arthur, didn't trust to the cloud. Julian pulled a leather-bound ledger from a shelf labeled Project Glass Window. As he flipped the pages, his breath hitched. It wasn't just financial data, it was a behavioral map of his own life. Scanned receipts from a coffee shop in London when he was 19, a transcript of a private therapy session from 3 years ago, even his heart rate data from his Apple Watch, synced and analyzed. "He wasn't just a father, Evelyn," Julian whispered, his voice cracking. "He was a curator. He was curating me." Evelyn didn't look up from the terminal. Her fingers moved with a terrifying mechanical speed. "We don't have time for a crisis of identity, Julian. Look at the network traffic. The house isn't just smart, it's reporting to an external IP address in Northern Virginia, a CIA black site or a private contractor. It doesn't matter. They know the vault door is open." Suddenly, the blue lights in the room turned a deep, pulsing crimson. A voice, not Arthur's, but a synthesized, neutral tone, echoed through the vents. "Unauthorized access detected. Estate lockdown protocol initiated. Please remain in the secure zone for your protection." The heavy steel door they had just walked through slid shut with a thud that vibrated in Julian's teeth. They were trapped in the very heart of the secret. Chapter 6. The Invisible Hand. "Lockdown?" Julian lunged for the door, his palms slamming against the cold metal. "Evelyn, do something!" She snapped, her eyes reflecting the scrolling red code on the screen. "Arthur's hidden wall isn't just a room, Julian. It's a dead man's switch. If he died and the estate wasn't settled according to his specific algorithmic parameters, the wall would trigger a massive sell-off in the tech sector. He's holding the U.S. economy hostage from the grave." She turned the monitor toward him. It showed a live feed of the New York Stock Exchange. A ticker for Blackwood Global was beginning to flicker. "If we don't bypass this, the trust fund, your inheritance, my settlement, everything liquidates into a dark pool. We'll be left with nothing but a criminal investigation for market manipulation." Julian felt a cold sweat prickle his neck. In the U.S., being a billionaire was a shield. Being a broke, suspected felon was a death sentence. "How do we stop it?" "The password isn't a word," Evelyn said, her gaze softening into something like pity. "It's a biometric, but not mine, and not a fingerprint." She pointed to a small glass sensor on the desk. "It's a retinal scan combined with a voice stress analysis. You have to tell the truth to the machine, Julian, about the night your mother left." Chapter 7. The Ghost of Greenwich. Julian felt the room shrinking. For 15 years, the official story was that Julian's mother, Diane, had walked on the family, leaving a short note and an empty jewelry box. "I don't know the truth," Julian protested. "I was 9. "But the algorithm thinks you do," Evelyn countered. "It's been tracking your micro-expressions for years every time her name is mentioned. Your subconscious knows something your conscious mind has suppressed. Arthur built this room to force you to admit it." The red lights pulsed faster. Outside, they could hear the faint sound of sirens, not police, but the private security firm Aegis that patrolled the gated community. They wouldn't be coming to rescue them. They'd be coming to sanitize the site. Julian stepped toward the sensor. The green laser hovered over his pupil. "State the event," the computer prompted. "My mother," Julian started, his voice trembling. "She left on a Tuesday. It was raining." "False," the computer chimed. "Discrepancy detected. Stress level 84%. "Julian, think!" Evelyn shouted over the rising hum of the servers. "The night the wall was built, why did he build it? He didn't build it to hide money, he built it to hide her." The realization hit Julian like a physical blow. He remembered the smell of the basement during the renovation, the wet concrete, the way his father had forbidden him from going near the library for a month. He remembered the sound of scratching. He thought it was rats. "She didn't leave," Julian whispered, his eyes widening. "She's in the house. She's always been in the house." The door didn't click open. Instead, a hidden panel in the floor groaned, revealing a narrow stone staircase leading even deeper into the foundation of the Connecticut earth. Chapter 8: The Subterranean Truth. They descended with only the light from Evelyn's phone. The air down here was thick with the smell of old paper and ozone. At the bottom of the stairs was a living space, luxurious but windowless. A high-end kitchen, a library, and a bedroom. And there, sitting in a velvet armchair, was a woman who looked exactly like the photos of Diane Blackwood, only aged 30 years. She was reading a book, a pair of gold-rimmed glasses perched on her nose. She looked up, her expression calm, as if she'd been expecting guests for dinner. "Julian, you're late. The algorithm predicted you'd be here 3 months ago. I suppose your emotional attachment to that girl delayed the logic gates." She looked at Evelyn, a thin smile playing on her lips. "And you must be the SEC plant. My husband always did have a flair for the dramatic when hiring staff." "You stayed here for 15 years?" Julian's voice was a ghost. "I didn't stay, Julian," Diane said, standing up. "I ran the company from here. Arthur was the face, I was the brain. We created the hidden wall to protect the world from the very technology we created. But now that Arthur is gone, the wall needs a new architect." She held out a small encrypted drive. "The U.S. government thinks we have a back door to every server in the country. They're right, but they don't know that the back door is currently controlled by a dead man's ghost. If you take this, Julian, you aren't just an heir. You are the most powerful man in the Western world. But you can never leave this room." Chapter 9: The Gilded Cage. The weight of the encrypted drive in Diane's hand seemed to distort the very air in the room. Julian looked from his mother, a woman he had mourned for over a decade, to Evelyn, whose professional composure was finally disintegrating. "You're asking me to become a ghost?" Julian said, his voice echoing in the soundproofed chamber. "To live in a bunker and manipulate the world through a screen? That's not a legacy, Mother. That's a prison sentence." Diane's smile didn't reach her eyes. "In the United States, Julian, power is the only thing that isn't a prison. Do you think the people walking the streets of Greenwich or Wall Street are free? They are slaves to the volatility Arthur and I created. Out there, you are a target. In here, you are the archer." She gestured to the wall of monitors. On them, real-time data from the New York Stock Exchange cascaded like digital rain. The hidden wall is currently shorting 3 major defense contractors. By tomorrow morning, their stock will plummet. A scandal will break in the New York Times, which the algorithm has already drafted and leaked, and the ensuing vacuum will be filled by Blackwood subsidiaries. We don't just predict the future, Julian. We manufacture it. Evelyn took a step forward, her SEC training kicking in. "This is more than market manipulation. This is shadow governance. If the Federal Reserve found out—" "The Federal Reserve uses our software to calculate their interest rate hikes, Miss Vance," Diane interrupted coldly. "They won't find out because they can't afford for us to be wrong." Chapter 10: The Breach. The heavy vibration of a distant explosion rattled the stone walls. Dust fell from the ceiling, coating Diane's velvet chair in a fine gray powder. That would be Aegis, Diane said, checking a small watch on her wrist. The private security firm. They aren't here for the inheritance, Julian. They're here to reclaim the asset, which in this case is me, and now you. We have to leave. Julian grabbed Evelyn's arm. Mother, come with us. We can take the drive, go to the press, go to the authorities. There are no authorities for people like us, Diane said, sitting back down and picking up her book. I've spent 15 years perfecting this wall. I am part of the architecture now. But you still have a choice. The service tunnel leads to the boathouse on the Sound. There's a boat registered in a shell company's name. Take it. Head for Montauk. And the drive? Evelyn asked, her eyes locked on the small device. If you take it, you control the wall. If you leave it, Aegis finds it, and the world continues to spin exactly as Arthur intended. Choose quickly. The thermal charges they're using will reach the library in 4 minutes. Chapter 11. The Long Island Sound. The escape was a blur of damp concrete and the smell of salt air. Julian and Evelyn sprinted through the narrow service tunnel, the sound of heavy boots echoing far behind them. They emerged into the cold Connecticut night, the rain still lashing against the trees. The boathouse was a shadow against the churning water of the Sound. Julian jumped into the sleek black motorboat, his hands fumbling with the ignition. "Wait!" Evelyn shouted over the wind. She was standing on the dock, the encrypted drive held between her thumb and forefinger. "Julian, if we take this, we're never safe. Every intelligence agency in the world will be looking for the people who hold the keys to the hidden wall. We'll be running forever." "And if we leave it," Julian shouted back, "we let the people who killed my father, who kept my mother in a hole, win?" In the distance, the Blackwood mansion erupted in a silent flash of light as the security team breached the vault. The silhouette of the house, a monument to American greed and secrecy, stood tall against the lightning. Evelyn looked at the drive, then at Julian. In that moment, the secret between the stepmother and the stepson shifted again. It wasn't about the money or the law anymore. It was about the terrifying reality of the U.S. power structure. You either own the system or the system owns you. "Start the engine," Evelyn said, her voice hardening. She stepped onto the boat. "We're not going to Montauk. We're going to New York. If we're going to be ghosts, we might as well haunt the people who built our cage." Chapter 12. The New Architects. As the boat sped away from the Greenwich coastline, the lights of the mansion faded into the mist. Behind them, the hidden wall had been breached, but the real secret was now moving toward the heart of the city. Julian looked at the drive in Evelyn's lap. He realized his father's algorithm had been right about one thing, the partnership, but it had been wrong about the outcome. It hadn't predicted that Julian would find his mother, and it hadn't predicted that he would choose to fight. "What's the first move?" Julian asked. Evelyn opened her laptop, her screen illuminating her sharp features. "The algorithm is currently crashing the tech sector. We're going to let it finish. Then we're going to use the hidden wall to buy back the world, one piece at a time." The story of the Blackwood estate ended that night in the fire, but the story of the wall was just beginning. In the high-rises of Manhattan, a new kind of silence was being built, one that wouldn't just hide secrets, but rewrite the truth itself.